So welcome everybody. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at artificial intelligence and what are some of the pros and cons of that. Now, my name's Nigel Mercer and I work for APMG International. APMG does a lot of different things, including accrediting training organizations around the world and offering many different qualification schemes. So I'm hoping that in today's video, we're going to be able to learn a little bit about the pros and cons of AI, as well as some of the pitfalls and things to look at, and maybe separate a little bit of the fact from the fiction. Now, before we go into that, we have a guest for you today, and the guest today, his name is Etienne Shardlow. Etienne's been with an APMG accredited trainer for many years now. Welcome, Etienne.
Hi, welcome, Nigel.
So,
good to be with you.
Thanks for joining us today, Etienne. So, we've got quite a bit to discuss today. So, what are your thoughts so far on artificial intelligence?
I think it's very exciting. I think it's something we're not going to be able to get away from. It's something that we are definitely moving towards. So whether we like it or not, I think it's something that we need to learn to deal with. And there are some real concerns around AI. And I think the big challenges are to kind of focus on the positive, avoid the negative, and make the most of what's coming.
Yeah, Etienne, I agree with you. I think a lot of people are really concerned and also really excited about AI. But I think before we get going, maybe tell us a little bit about what AI actually means, okay?
Well, it's really interesting in that the community that is investing all their time and energy in researching AI and developing AI can't agree on what AI is. So there's lots of different ideas around what life is, what what's the word I'm looking for? Consciousness is, and then there are also lots of disagreements around what intelligence is. And I like to think of intelligence very broadly as being able, or the ability really, to solve complex challenges and achieve complex goals.
Yeah, that makes sense. Etienne, what do you consider to be machine learning? We hear this term a lot out there at the moment.
Yeah, so within the AI space, there are kind of three general groupings of AI. The first is machine learning, which is quite common these days. And this is things like online shopping recommendations and your navigation systems in your car, and it learns your patterns. It, when you're typing something into a search engine and you type a word and it suggests the next word, your keyboard on your phone does the same thing. Predictive text is a form of machine learning. So machine learning is already out there. It's being used widely. And then we have got a thing called narrow AI, which is just machine learning at a kind of higher level. And narrow AI has a particular focus and a particular goal that it is kind of striving to achieving. And it's narrowly focused on that, achieving that one thing. And it can't really do anything else. And then they talk about general AI, which is kind of human level intelligence, which we aren't anywhere near yet. And again, lots of disagreement in the kind of AI community about whether this level of intelligence can be achieved using technology in the next few decades or in the next century or never.
Okay. So in fact, when people have concerns, should we say, about AI, it's probably more they're thinking about general AI rather than the narrow or machine learning formats that we were talking about.
Yeah, I think that is where the big concerns are. We have all the movies with the killer robots, and we've got Terminator and Hell 9000, and so there's lots of AI in fiction, and often it's the bad AI and the robots coming to get us, and and those may be real threats. And these are things that we do need to be aware of. But machines developing consciousness, machines becoming evil, that isn't a thing. A machine will always strive to achieve its goal, whatever its goal is. And I think the big threat really is when we create machines that have different goals to us. So as long as our goals are very strictly aligned and the machines have exactly the same goals as we do, and machines have the goal to protect humanity, then we're okay. Yeah, as soon as we set a machine a goal of saving the planet, what's going to happen is the machine's going to wipe out humanity because humans are the biggest threat to planet Earth. So if we task a machine with saving the planet, well, humans are gone. So so it really is about making sure we set the right goals.
Etienne, that all makes perfect sense, actually. But I think that you've answered the question of can AI and machines take over the world, and I think the answer is probably yes, if we let it happen, and if we aren't aligned. But I think there's a much closer threat to people, and that's probably much more around their jobs, right?
Yeah. So if you look at the threats that AI pose, there are some kind of near-term threats and there are long-term threats. And robots taking over the world, long-term threat. I don't think we have to worry about that anytime soon, but we do have to put controls in place now and start thinking about AI safety and how we're going to prevent that if we want to prevent that. Robots might control us better than we control ourselves. Robots might make for better government than we currently have. So we don't know those answers yet, but we do need to think about those long-term safety issues. But in the short term, jobs is probably our number one threat. And there is no doubt that computers are going to take some jobs, probably very many jobs. And, if you look at a lot of the research and the thinking around AI, there are schools of thought that say, well, it's actually okay for robots to take our jobs. It's okay for machines to take our jobs because right now they're taking the crappy jobs that no one wants anyway. Who really wants to be an accountant? Don't shoot me. But that's the kind of thinking is, we can get machines to go mining and take over those unsafe jobs underground. We can get machines to do the boring, repetitive stuff that we don't really get a thrill from anyway.
Sure. And that actually makes sense.
So, a lot of, and it's not just Luddites who are afraid of the technology and what it can do and job losses and things. Those are very real threats. I think the big thing is right now we need to start developing skills that computers and technology can't do. Social intelligence, creativity. These are things that machines can't do yet. Maybe one day, right now, and for the near future, machines can't do those. So my advice to kids these days is, develop those types of skills. It's amazing. The humanities seemed to be unimportant, but they're the only thing that's actually really going to survive AI.
Etienne, I have to agree with you there. The more I learn about AI and the more I read about AI, the more I realize that if we look at AI as a tool to assist us in achieving our goals, things become a lot clearer. So if you look at how would AI, for example, be used, I mean, there seem to be many, many different examples of how AI is being used to great effect right now. And I mean, even in the financial worlds, healthcare, and many other industry sectors, transport, manufacturing, operations. Maybe you can share a few examples that you've come across so far.
Yeah. So you spoke about in the medical field, AI is helping us to process data faster than ever. It's helping us to look at solutions that we might not have thought about ourselves. When you give machines massive data sets, they can pick up trends that are so much harder for us as people to pick up. They can look at massive data sets and pick up trends, whereas for us, it might take years to kind of pick up a trend. Machines have already proven to be better at diagnosing illness than human doctors, but a human doctor can show empathy and they can deal with the emotional side of that illness that a machine will never be able to do. And I think that's the differentiating factor between machines and humans is that emotional intelligence, that social intelligence, and that is something that machines will never be able to replace. They'll never be able to feel. So we don't have to worry about that. But already in the medical field, it's helping with diagnosis. We are already using AI to help us to investigate and develop vaccines. We are using AI to help us with, already, driverless cars, autonomous vehicles. There are currently truck tests all over the US and all over Russia where trucks are driving long distances autonomously. So the days of the truck driver, especially the long distance truck driver, and it's really bad for those people who are earning a living doing that. But it's not safe for people to be driving for such long hours and such long distances. And autonomous trucks will be able to do that better. I think the big thing, as I said earlier, we need to develop new skill sets and be able to, and we need to start thinking about jobs that are going to be replacing our existing jobs. Machines will take the existing jobs. What jobs can we create that will replace those?
That makes perfect sense. And I think that there is this huge scope of opportunity here for us as human beings, to be able to look for those opportunities and find the types of jobs that we would be better suited to doing rather than the jobs that we wouldn't be, that machines could take over from us. That's a very good point.
Yeah. And in terms of that kind of jobs question, when the printing press was created, the scribes were up in arms because, what were they going to do, But in those days, books were scarce because they were all manually written out by hand and copied by hand, and it took years to copy a manuscript. And, the scribes were up in arms because their jobs were going to be taken. But if you think about the jobs that have been created because of the printing press, authors, journalists, anyone can, these days with self-publishing, anyone can write a book.
That's true.
People didn't know how to read and write because they didn't have access to books, so there was no point. So the printing press created this massive surge in literacy. So there are so many jobs that exist today because of the printing press that couldn't have even been imagined back then. And my approach in terms of the jobs question is, well, yes, in the short term, there's going to be sacrifices and there's going to be a lot of job losses. But there are jobs coming that we haven't even imagined yet. And maybe I'm looking at this through rose-tinted specs, but that's how I see this. And I think what we need to do is prepare ourselves and develop skills that robots aren't going to be able to do.
I think you're absolutely right. I think we do need to do that. And I think at the moment, the focus seems to be largely on the practical application of artificial intelligence rather than the continuous strive to find, or to try to build in that perfect general AI type capability and to make use of things, make use of the normal machine learning and narrow AI that we've been able to use so far. I mean, the other day I've seen that somebody has built some applications based on AI for the financial stock markets. So to look at the stock prediction, and to see whether or not if there's a bull market or a bear market or how is a stock performing history-wise. Now, before AI, we had some of that. A lot of it was obviously humanly driven and still is. But having an application that has a lot more capability to do in-depth research and analyze huge quantities of data in a much faster way than we can, I can see a potential advantage there for a stockbroker as a tool, to help them make better decisions.
And I think that's the thing with AI is that it is a tool, and tools can be used for good, they can be used for bad. And AI will be used by the good guys, it will be used by the bad guys. And we can't blame the tool. No.
We can't blame the tools. That's very, very true. That's very true. So leading into that, APMG, we have built a course in partnership with BCS, and this course is a little bit more about AI. So if you scan the QR code that's on screen at the moment, it'll take you to the webpage and you can find out a little bit more about that course. Now, I'm just going to show you a little bit about it. There are two different levels to this course, and you've got the basic level, which gives you a little bit of information. I'll just take the QR code off for us for now, so you can see the website nicely. And we have the Essentials course. So the Essentials course is all about the terminology and obviously general principles and, the benefits and the different types of AI. So it'll give you a little bit more information. The basic processes of how machine learning fits together, what the sort of challenges would be, the future of humans and AI. So there's quite a bit of information in the Essentials course. And I think that this one, who is it for really? Lots of different types of folks. This one is that we have the foundation course as well, by the way, which goes into a lot more detail. So there's a wide audience that looks at this. This course would be suitable for anybody from engineers right down to people who are developing web pages. And anybody in between, really, service architects and program managers and CIOs, CTOs, research managers, scientists. There's a broad scope of information in the course as well, and it'll give you quite a bit. And by the way, there is an exam associated with each of those two courses, along with the digital badge that you will be able to obtain. And the digital badge is quite handy. This is something that you can share on your social media channel. You can share your success by putting out your APMG badge and prove that you have the credentials there. So very, very interesting indeed. And I think that having to look at AI from the point of view that this is a tool and it's something that could be really interesting for everybody to adopt gives you a better perspective on what AI might do and might be for you in your role. So Etienne, coming back to things here. Do you have any final thoughts on what you'd like to tell everybody about AI and how to proceed?
I think the first step really is to read up, take the course, get familiar with what AI can and can't do, separate, as we've tried to do today, a little bit the fact from the fiction. What are the myths and what is reality? There's a lot about AI that we don't know. My focus in a lot of my consulting work is in governance and goal alignment. And I think the big thing with AI is going to be that, are we using AI for the right reasons and are we using it the right way? And I think
agree with you.
That's where our focus really needs to be.
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. What I do think though, and this is something which has come up repeatedly, we get asked this a lot, what sort of jobs could one look at when it comes to AI? And I think that there's a huge amount of scope for the type of jobs that people are going to be looking for and what companies are going to be looking for in individuals. So having the background in AI and being able to prove that you have the knowledge in AI is really helpful. But the types of jobs, Etienne, do you have any thoughts on what type of jobs are out there at the moment in the AI field? And I'm not talking about the guys who are, the ones actually creating this type of technology. Of course, that's part of it. But, in your general employment, what sort of things could we be looking for there?
It sounds like it's not an AI job, but something like business analysis. Just being able to translate business needs into technical requirements. So you can train the AI to do what your business does or what your business needs it to do. So things like that. So AI jobs are not going to be restricted strictly to the computer scientists and the coders and the people who are developing the massive brains, these artificial brains behind the AI. Those jobs are important, and there are going to be some jobs, in that space. But we need to be able to train the AI. We need to be able to teach the AI what we want it to do. And a lot of the jobs around business analysis and systems thinking and understanding how stuff impacts other stuff, those kinds of jobs are going to be needed. So that's where the creativity also comes in. So I think going forward, we are going to need the technical skills, but there's going to be a lot of demand in future for creativity and thinking type skills.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you there, Etienne. I think this is a very, very exciting emerging technology that is a field we definitely haven't seen the last of. There's going to be a lot more of this to come. And I think,
For sure.
the leaps and bounds that are being taken by the developments, of this field it's really quite staggering. So, but Etienne, I just wanted to say thanks for spending time with us today. And
Yeah, an absolute pleasure.
we will be speaking again on this, I'm sure, as things progress.
Oh, yes, for sure.